My name is Tiveria, and today I have Dr. Soni Spera with me. I'm utterly delighted to have you here.
Well,
how are you doing?
thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So let's go to the very beginning. Let's take it from the start. You were chosen on a basketball scholarship, right? How did that happen? That must be quite an interesting story.
Well, I was a decent basketball player in high school, and they recruited me out of my high school. And I had a teammate that was 1 year older that he was recruited heavily. So they saw me, and then I had a teammate after me that went to play at Division One. My teammate went to Syracuse. I went to Syracuse, and my other good friend went to Boston College. So in 3 years, we had a couple of Big East, three Big East players. So.
And why dentistry? How did that happen from basketball to dentistry?
Well, that's a different story. I was much younger, probably sixth grade, fifth, sixth grade. And I was just talking with my dad, and I play with the kids in the neighborhood a lot. And I was like, I think I probably want to be like a doctor for children, like a kid's doctor. And my dad said to me, no, be a dentist. It's a better lifestyle. And the hell did I know? So I just like, okay. And it seemed to me everybody I spoke to along my journey definitely didn't encourage me. I think most of them tried to discourage me from going into it. And I thought it was the strangest thing. And I think that probably worked in my favor because I think the more they didn't encourage me, the more I was like, well, what the hell's going on? I'm going to do this. Like, kind of reverse psychology. And very fortunate that that's what I chose.
Mm. And did it work out the way you imagined it to?
Yeah, I was dumb enough to just let everybody teach me. I never went in with a preconceived notion. I didn't think that you had to be artistic to do the job. I thought maybe autistic, but not artistic. And I thought I got a shot at that. I was not very artistic. I have horrible handwriting to this day. And but when I got to dental school, working with the wax and the blue wax and the red wax and, just working with all the products and all the things that we had to do for our lab, I didn't argue. I just was like, okay, teach me. And I let the teachers teach me. And I didn't have any response like, oh, we're never going to need this. Oh, my dad's a dentist. He says this is all bogus. I just was like, hey, this is what the test is on. This is what I'm going to study. And I just went through with that attitude and, kind of, I guess I'd say myopic or blinders on, but I just remember you walk down the hallway at Squires Hall at Buffalo on the third floor, and there's all these composites of classes dating all the way back to, I don't know, 1920s or whatever it was. And I just said, well, if all these people did this, I can do this.
So it must have been quite challenging, right? Do you think this, now that you look back, do you think your passion, your experience, your skill as a basketball player helped you along the way somehow in dentistry other than just getting your scholarship to get into a school? Or
Yeah,
how
I
do you
do.
connect the dots?
I do, because you have to compete. I mean, you're competing for your time, you're competing to get better. You are a competitive person by nature, or you're just going to get gobbled up and spit out. And then when I went to dental school, I was a graduate assistant basketball coach. And I remember they didn't want to allow me to do that. And I went and I met Dr. George Ferry, rest his soul, was one of the most wonderful people, said, I think there's a way we can do this. And this was before I really started dental school. And he talked to Harvey Sproul, who was the dean of clinics, and he said, I think what we can do is we can shuffle this one clinical time around, and Sonny can go from 10 to 12 and then from 1 to 3, and then he's done at 3 o'clock. We don't have to have him 1 to 3 and then 3 to 5 in clinic. And argument after argument, and I'll never forget, he said he agreed to allow it to happen, and he looked me right in the eye, shook his finger in my face. I'm going to keep my eye on you. So now the challenge is laid down. So what do? Well, I accept the challenge and I bust my butt, and I have 95% of my graduate work done before my third year in dental school. Because he's watching me. I never missed a clinic time. I always had a patient in the chair. I did everything I could to prepare for it. Like if you're making a denture, you had to, you had to get the trial base approved, and then you had to get the wet, and all the steps that you had to do. I just made sure I did it in the time I had, and I was fortunate. Again, I just kept my nose down and clean, and just tried to do what they taught me, and did okay.
All right. Any interesting incident? Did you always know that you were going to own a practice, or was it like a difficult decision to start with? I mean, how did that happen?
It's a good question. I think my nature, if I mean, I could look back and say, oh yeah, I knew I was always gonna, but I didn't. I went into a practice with two young dentists, and I just had envisioned, well, I'll be the third guy here, and we'll grow this, and then we'll have another, like be a nice young group practice where we share ideas and thoughts and meetings of the minds. Well, that kind of didn't happen, and no fault of anybody's. I think they were busy and life got in the way, and they were paying their bills and starting to make some money, and so their free time was their free time. They didn't spend it a lot with me or on things of that nature. So when a practice came up for sale, I was like, oh, I can make this work. And it was a little bit out. I mean, I was practicing kind of downtown Binghamton. This was outside on one of the suburbs that I was nowhere near where I grew up. And I was like, well, I could probably make this happen. And I remember talking to the dentist, and we covered for him because there was a called in-office aid group that you worked one day out of 30 days to keep his practice afloat when there's an injury. He had an eye injury. So we did that for 3 months, and then I was like, I'm going to buy the practice. So I bought the practice. Everybody thought I was nuts. It's a farmer's practice. It's dead. It's blah, blah, blah. So went out there in the first year, we increased the place by 50, 60%, looking for a new spot right away because I knew his office was going to be too small. So we built a new building in another year, and we just really grew it, and then brought an associate in, and then we added another practice, so that we were on a pretty steadfast, steady uphill climb of growth, and haven't really looked back.
Yeah, and so we see now in dentistry, we hear about a lot of practice owners who have a major fallout in the first year, right? I mean, the thought of expanding to another practice, and then going into a multi-practice group sort of a thing is very intimidating, and it's hard to just have all those pieces together in a manner that they're scalable. What was the turning point? How did you make it happen? Tell me all
Okay.
about it.
Well, my first practice, the practice I was practicing in, was a fee-for-service model, and well, out of network model, right? I've been corrected a few times. It was out of network, and I learned a lot about from the dentist how I wanted to do things, how I would present treatment plans, cases, and handle a lot of that stuff. So when push came to shove, I wasn't really interested in signing on plans or giving up my autonomy or working for an insurance company, which is how I viewed it. So when I bought the practice I bought, the fee schedule was a little bit lower, but it was still an out of network practice. And we just kept it going. And then when we've added and moved into different offices or bought dentists out, most of those practices were not in networks either. If they were, then we were getting out. The last practice that I bought, which was the Binghamton downtown practice, the dentist wasn't in any plans, but he had a couple side deals with oh, this guy runs this company. He gave everybody 40% off, and his overhead was 70%. So I was like, it's costing you 10 cents every time they walk in the door. He had no idea, and he didn't really want to hear it. So I told the person that was the owner, I said, listen, I'd love to take care of you, but I can't do it at this rate. And I can't do it to just you. So I have to treat you like I treat every single other person that walks in that door, has a fair fee schedule. Now, if you want to finance it or you want to help with XYZ, we can help you with that. However, the fees are the fees. And some people stayed, some people left.
And what do you think are the common misconceptions people have about going out of network or starting a fee-for-service practice?
Well, I think there's a fear. I mean, most people are driven by fear, and that's how the insurance companies, at least in our area, operated. They would come into your practice and they would say, Doc, you pronounce it Ramiz or Ramirez? How do you pronounce your last name?
Ramiz.
Ramiz. Dr. Ramiz, you're going to want to sign up for this plan. We're going to get you a lot of patients. And just if you don't, if you're not interested, down the street is going to, and then the other one down the street. So all your practice is going to dry up. All the patients are going to run to these offices. You're going to have nothing there. So you better sign up or else. That's the underwritten message, right? It's not in those words, but they certainly are telling you, listen, you're not going to make it. So the old dental model, right, which was single doc, single practice, like practicing in a cave, right? And then no
Yeah.
dentists speak to each other so that we can't communicate because it's collusion and other things. So, I mean, our dental society, before I got to Binghamton, was progressive. They got together, they formed a different group that was not the dental society that allowed them to meet and discuss things without it being collusions. And then what they would always say to you, make decisions based on facts. Do you understand what the least favored nations clause is? Do you understand some of these things? And without saying it, the idea was if they cannot operate without your license. So if this insurance company comes in and they're knocking on doors and they talk to 50 dentists and one dentist, agrees, well, they're not really getting what they want. So in essence, most of the dentists would speak to each other in a professional way. We had a pretty strong dental society at the time. Everybody made their own decisions independent of each other, but they made it with the knowledge of what signing up for a plan meant. It didn't mean just, oh, patients are flocking, and because they're going to get so many more patients, you can afford to cut your fees. No, it was way more than that. It was way, way more than that. So we just never elected to go in to the plan. So I have not practiced under the umbrella or under the influence of an insurance company. Do we work with the insurance company? Absolutely. Do we try to maximize benefits? Do we submit claims for patients? Do we take the insurance payments that will pay us and they pay their copay? Yeah, we do that with everybody. So that's why we're out of network. We don't, pay us up front and then you deal with your insurance. We deal with their insurance and we fight for them, and it's often difficult because, as you know, patients are tethered to their insurance more than anything you'd ever believe. Like, well, I can't do this. My insurance company says they won't pay for it. I said, well, understand, that doesn't mean you can't do it. What that means is that they're not going to pay. And if you think about it, why would the insurance company be motivated to pay out more benefits versus make more profits by keeping that money in-house? And I really experienced it when we had a water leak on the third floor of our home and it flooded the second floor and the first floor. So we had a major, major claim. They offered us less than a third of what the overall settlement was. And they kind of stuck to their guns a long time. And we were like, no, we are absolutely not doing this. My wife was on the phone 24/7 and they just wear you down. They wear you down. They wear you down. And eventually a lot of people just give up and say, okay, send it. I'll rather have this than nothing, when it's absolutely criminal what they try to get away with.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right about that. And we keep hearing about all of these challenges on every forum. But then again, it's just heartbreaking to still see many dentists stuck in a rut, kind of that, because they just don't know a better way to do it. They don't know how to get out of it. And there's very less advocacy. I think there's very less communication in the dental community. And if we just started communicating more, spreading the message more, I think there can be so many who can benefit from it. So
yeah, I hosted the Fee for Service Dentist podcast for 5 years. And I hope in that podcast I have now, it's called the Independent Dental Practice Podcast.
Yeah.
And we talked about this ad nauseum. Like I had guest after guest after guest, and I still talk to them all the time. Like, what's your strategy? What's your plan? And if I were going to go on the lecture circuit and I was talking about this, I would put together the five key steps to dropping an insurance plan. But I'll start it with the most important thing. Someone needs to come to the realization and get the mindset. I am not doing this anymore. I am dropping this insurance company. And I call it burn the boats mentality, right? You know that
Yeah.
story? Where the guy in the ward lands on the lands on the shoreline and he's gonna face extreme 10-1 odds. He burned the boats. There's no way out.
Yeah.
You need that mentality where you don't have a plan B. So you need to make plan A work. And those are
Yeah.
the people that I find are the most successful. So that's absolutely step one. You have to have the mindset that I am not going backwards. We are forging ahead. And I think that also as a leader, as the owner of your practice, that sets the tone for your team.
Yeah.
Now they've got to be on board, right? You've got to have everybody rowing in the same direction. And almost invariably, if you have a decent enough sized team, when you go to this transition, you're probably going to lose a staff member or team member or two that
Yeah.
just can't mentally grasp why this is better. And that's what the message has to be to the patients. This is better for you.
Yeah.
And you have to have that conversation knee to knee, eyeball to eyeball, look them right in the eye and absolutely answer them. Because if you think about it like yourself, when a patient you present something, let's say you say, okay, we're going to do this, it's $300, and that person's like $300, and they stand up and they're like, how can it's $300? What are you talking about? It's crazy. And then you have to have an answer because you're on your heels, and you have to have an answer that is absolutely visceral
Yeah.
and authentic and comes out of your pores. You can screw up the verbiage. I believe that. I don't think you want to read a sheet of paper, but the message has to be very clear.
Yeah.
For your dental care, right? We are going to come up and with your input, we're going to try to come up with what's best for you. Not what's cheapest, not what's the least expensive option, or what's the most alternative. Let's come up with an option that works. And if that doesn't, then let's go through the variable options. Nobody should be here negotiating on your behalf who doesn't have your interest at heart. The insurance
Absolutely.
company doesn't give two hoots about you. They care about, are you paying your premiums? And are our premiums way more than what we pay out?
Yeah.
It's a business. They're answering stockholders. It's a little bit like when private equity owns dental offices.
Yeah.
As you start to move the decision making of dentistry out of the dentist hands and into the accountants, the bean counters, the equity, the stockholders, it's a different conversation. I
Yeah.
I struggle with that. I can't accept that. So
And yeah, listening to that brought me to my next question. How was the entire process of educating your team about it, your patients about it? Because and how did you brand yourself in that manner that when patients walked in, they were already educated and they already knew about what you offered and how you were helping them?
no, I didn't have to because we were always out of network. I mean, I'll give you an example. This was a funny one. It's a young man that I went to high school with. His sister was in my class, and he worked for UPS, and he needed to have some work, and we went over it and did it, and then he went back to his HR people and said, that he wasn't going to pay, that I told him I would accept his insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So I didn't really respond. I said, you owe the money. Then his HR person called me at the office and wanted to talk to me about it. Well, he was in the room with him. I said, okay, so I have his consent to discuss this with you. Yes? Yes, I'm right here. I said, okay. When he came into the office, he was given a treatment plan. The fees were discussed. His amount not paid wasn't there. And then he said, yeah, but he says that you accept it. I said, why would I accept his insurance plan when I have never for one day of my life practiced where I accepted any insurance plan ever. Why would that even come out of my mouth? They had nothing to say. And then he kind of says to me, well, will you take less? I was like, no, I've spent more time with you and him going over this, and I still haven't been paid what I'm due. So I am not going to discount my rates at all. In fact, I should send you bills for the extra amount of time that I've had to spend on this, like any lawyer in this country would do, right?
Yeah.
So no, but it kind of he put me on the spot, and he literally made me think, and I was like, why would I make that promise to him? He didn't come in this office because he saw my name in a book, because it's not in your book.
Yeah.
I said, we have a ton of patients who work for your company that visit our office and are happy to do so and appreciate what we have to offer. And you can ask any of them how we do things. Okay. So, and without calling him a liar, I called him a liar, but they understood. And then he paid his bill. Then I haven't seen him since because he was dismissed. I'm not playing your game. So,
Um, yeah, listening to that brought me to my next question. How was with the corporate dentistry and DSOs? Do you think that has affected in any way how you practice, or that has influenced the way you've practiced, and how do you see it impacting the small businesses or independent practices now?
well, I think you got to look at, everybody talks about, economies of scale, right?
Yeah.
And there are some benefits to having large group practices, large DSOs, large, plans where they've negotiated. Maybe they got their health insurance costs down, so they can offer health insurance at a reasonable rate to their staff and their team and their employees. I'm sure they've negotiated their supply bill down, their lab bill down, etc. And they're using the same mentality. If you don't give us a break, we'll go somewhere else and you'll lose the business.
Mm.
So there's also that fear of missing out, right? Like my kids say, FOMO. They have that FOMO.
Yeah.
They they have that fear of missing it, and then they sort of, hey, we hold all the cards. So I mean that's legit. They have the ability to make negotiations and do some things. Now, there's group purchasing options, there's some other things, Alliance of Independent Dentists. There's some other areas where dentists can we'll call it coagulate, right? And group together and try to take advantage of that power of scale. But I think that's real. And it's a little frightening. So I know, for example, if I'm doing let's just take, I'm doing a composite on 7, and if I'm using a Voco product, a Kerr product, and a Kettenbach product, and I know I spent, let's say, $10 on that compule, and the person across the street may only pay $3 for that same compule. You have to be shrewd and efficient with what you do, and you also don't want to cut corners. So I've always kind of lived by it. You win on price, you win on service, you win on quality. Pick two. I think it's impossible to do all three. And you want to be the cheapest? Okay. You want to do the best work in town? Everybody says they do the best, but we know who's do the best. And then, right, the other aspect too, do you want to do that? Or are you going to be just a great customer service? Listen, the phone rings twice, somebody answers it, there's a human on the phone. You can always reach somebody. You need me after hours, here's my phone. You can call
Yeah.
me. That's, 5-star purple cow. Wow. Could quote my good friend Dr. Bob Pick, rest in peace.
Yeah.
The ability to try to deliver those experiences. That's you got to define your practice model. I think
Yeah.
it's very hard to do that kind of quality with that kind of level of service at discount bargain basement prices.
Yeah. Really important to have that strategic vision from the very beginning, right?
Mhm.
And so speaking of, you also have an in-house lab, right? So
Yes, we do.
was that a strategic move to support the model that you follow? Was it something that you
Well,
always
I don't think it was, but looking back, a little bit, right? There's a good friend of mine, Dennis in town, Barry Raff, wonderful guy. Rest in peace, another one. He had a lab in his office. And I said, I said, hey, Barry, I said, I'm thinking of doing that. He said, yeah, let me come over. Let me see it. Where you think? So I was like, yeah. So it comes over. He's an aggressive guy. A lot of people didn't like him, but he was pure in heart and to the point. He looked at it and he was like, oh, yeah, this is fine. You can do this, put this here, put a broken arm casting machine. Bop, 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 bop. Yeah, you got to do that. I was like, okay. And so now he's got me. I'm doing it. He goes, here's what you do. Sonny, go buy the equipment tomorrow. Put the money up, buy the equipment. Because once you put the equipment and you spent the money, you're a dentist. You're going to say, I got to use this. And you're going to get the people in here. And then he helped me find a really good metal guy because I was doing PFMs, right? And all I really want to do is crown and bridge. That's where I really just want to do crown and bridge, right? And stop. I was using a lab in Tempe, Arizona. Van Hook, a wonderful guy, great lab. And I said, okay, let's do this. And we hired Andy. He was our first employee in the lab. And then since now we have four employees, it's been a challenge because, okay, at what point are you going to go full digital? At what point are you putting in all the mills? You're shutting down the casting machine. You're doing, we do dentures, we do our orthodontic appliances, we do our clear aligners. All that stuff's done in-house. And so just now, like we're replacing our digital printers with some newer ones. And we're now getting to the point where, hey, we want to be able to mill the frameworks if we're doing all on X work and stuff. So it never stops. It seems like it's a constant money pit, but when you make that first jump into design center, full mills, you're spending $300,000-400,000 just in equipment. But you're either going to do it or you're not, right? So burn the boats. We did it. And we've been fortunate to attract some talent too, to go from one certified dental lab tech. We now have two certified dental lab techs, and we have two more. One is out recovering from breast cancer. The other one is working full time. And we have a student, a future dental student, who's taken over some of the smaller tasks, the lab, the models, the pour, this printing, the trimming of some of the trays and stuff like that. And he's learning gangbusters too. So, and we're right now looking to expand our lab again, the footprint to include more printing, more things that we want to do and another mill. So we'll have four mills in there. So
Wow.
a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff.
Now, I mean, how do you manage all of it? It can be so overwhelming for somebody who's at my stage of life, probably to, it's easier when you're looking back and you see, oh, that was a struggle, but I made it. And then you're able to like connect the dots and see how you came out of it, right? But for anybody listening, number one, I just want you to really just give like, very objective advice on how can you set that vision? How can you work towards the things that matter most that can take you where you are aiming for? And
Right.
the other question that I would want you to address for people who want to like, adapt or adopt this model of dentistry is how can they start? I mean, even if it's just 10 to 20% to begin with, how can they pivot from what they're doing right now and how can they adopt this model?
Well, your first step is you got to have a clear vision of who you are and what you are. Like which two of the three are you picking? The price, right? Convenience, locate, whatever. Price, quality, or personal experience. So we felt that the lab was going to, and this is again, now I was pushed by Dr. Rath, and I love him for it because I could not imagine practicing dentistry today without my lab. I could not in any way, shape, or form. So you have shade matches, you have tough cases, you have things. There's nothing like having my ceramics come out and we're working on custom staining or shading. I mean, that's hands-on, that's personalized service. Are you getting that down the street? I don't think so. Are you getting that around the county? Maybe, but probably not a lot. About a denture, can I flip it? Can I turn a denture around quick? Can I add it? Can I repair? Can I add a tooth? Can I add a clasp? Can I do all those things? Yes. And can I do them right away? Yeah, because they're there and they're trained. So that fits our model of how we want to deliver the care. Now, how do you do it? How do you manage it? Well, it's not easy, but once you have some clarity on your functions, then you're really providing a culture of which you're going to exist in, right? Like in our
Mm.
office, to me, our culture, we have, you know, 7 core values. We have a mission statement, but I think when it's all said and done, we want to have fun. We want to have laughter. We want to have joy. We want to walk out every day, say, I did everything I could, the best I could. And
Yeah.
sometimes it ain't good enough. Sometimes it didn't work, right? But when you bring people in, they gotta be bathed in your culture, and it has to come out of their pores. It has to just be natural and authentic. So now when we hire that, we're looking for attitude and personality first and foremost. Technical, we can train. So as we've grown the lab and as we've done this, what we were forced to do, the next step was we were forced to become almost corporate-like, which I didn't like at all, and I fought it, but I see the need for it. You need titles, you need roles and responsibilities, and you need clear, call it a chain of command. So we have an office manager. She's going to deal with this. You're going to be working under a office administrator or office manager in your location of the 5. So your dental assistants, we're going to have a lead dental assistant in each office. We're going to have a head hygienist. So there's complexity there, but by all means, if a hygienist has a question, she wants to come talk to me. We have that conversation. You know, so we have done everything we can to open all communication lines. We have a backdoor intranet on our website for employees to use. We post everything we can. You know, I posted something the other day about, hey, catch someone doing something great, just about a situation that came up Wednesday. My hygienist really went over and above in this scenario when the other hygienist, we couldn't find her for 3 hours, calling every emergency contact, and the patients had no idea what was going on. It was just incredible. But anyway, that's an avenue for us to communicate. And then hopefully having people, you know, having real, you know, evaluations, performance evaluations from people who are involved in it. And then the training. So you got to hire the right people. You got to train, 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 and then you got to trust, trust,
Yeah.
trust. So those
Yeah.
are the things that have made us who we are. And I am a very small piece in this whole map, you know. And once you have great people around you, it's I'm gonna say it's easy, but you know it's not easy. It's easier when you have all the right people around you, but you still have to make that commitment. And you also have to be able to juggle 3 or 4 balls at one time.
Yeah.
If you can't, you're going to struggle running a business. You're just going
Yeah.
to struggle.
Thank you, Dr. Sani. We will wind up. I just want to know what's that one compliment that you received from a patient that you still remember and you're like, yeah, that's why I became a dentist.
Oh, jeez. Let's see. A compliment that I've received from a patient.
Maybe even your staff. Let's
Oh
not just.
yeah. I mean, it was just one, you know, yesterday, today. That's why I love coming here. Um, you know, you make me feel, you know, whole, or you make me feel all together, or you don't belittle me, you know, and your staff, everyone here is smiling and nice. I actually enjoy, you know, I actually enjoy coming here is a common thing. And I'm like, really? Is it that bad in the rest of the world? Like I actually like you're going to the death chamber, like you're going to the gas chamber. And it's great to see someone that you see walking with their head down, they're looking at the floor, you know, their color in their skin is not really all there. You can tell they're a basket case. And if you can get them to open up during your appointment, right? And it doesn't have to be laughter, although that's my goal every time. I want to chuckle somewhere. Um, there's a moment where they feel cared for, right? And when they feel cared for, job's done, right? So the old, they don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. That's where it comes out. And when your team is doing it, oh hey, I want to see Dr. Spear, but I want Renee. Or, is Sherry here? I want to Sherry. I made my appointment when Sherry's here. So they want to see a certain assistant, a certain doctor. And having a big office doesn't mean we're going to run it big. We want it to be personal. That's our tagline. It's personal. So if you want to see me, I'm there. Like today, I'm there Tuesday, 7 to 1. Let's schedule it. And you can make someone's day. And sometimes they don't say it. It's not like you see all these cases, these beautiful veneers and these full mouth rehabs. But what about when you're doing an MO on number 15 on a guy that's 400 pounds with a tongue the size of an orca? That's hell just to keep it dry. But I had one today. We had 14 DL, 15 MO. It was like, how are we going to do this? And, talking to him, conversation. He's a part of it, and he thanked me afterwards. He was like, wow, you really made that nice. And I was like, oh, you're welcome. And then he left. And I was like, oh, thank God we don't have to do anything else. Thank God he doesn't have his wisdom teeth, actually. Like, I ain't gonna do that. But you come across these moments, and you always have to set aside anything, and you have to think about, what if that's me, and how far can I go to provide them with that great, purple cow wow experience. But being authentic, right? It's not about phony and jumping up and down and fake enthusiasm. It's just, to me, authentic and real compassion and empathy for the person, and then putting them at the center of everything that you're doing in that treatment room.
Wow, Dr. Soni, this was quite an episode. I really enjoyed it. Massive respect to you from where you started,
Thank you.
where you've come, and what you're doing for dentistry.